Thanks for joining me on HR Chalk Talk. I'm Brent Houchin, founder of Houchin Consulting and co-founder of Tech People Resources, also known as TPR. The HR Chalk Talk podcast is here to provide information to those in human resources, those in leadership positions, and those who simply want to know more about HR best practices. Each week, we provide you with a new subject in our podcast, and today's subject is required learning. Should we require our teams to attend mandatory learning or not? Being Tech People Resources in the business of producing and conducting learning and development, one of the questions I ask prospective clients or current clients when we discuss the subjects they would like for us to custom create for them is, will this learning opportunity be mandatory or required, or will it be open to sign up? I get a lot of different and interesting responses. I've heard it all. It will absolutely not be mandatory. No one learns when they are required. It has to be organic. Or, I've heard, we leave it open in most cases, but being this subject is so important to us, we're requiring everyone to attend. And I've heard, everyone has to attend. We then use it in the event that they say they did not know something. We remind them that they attended the mandatory training, and we have their signature right here on the sign-in sheet that they attended. Therefore, they have no out to say that they didn't know better. I'm really not a fan of the gotcha mentality. Some companies utilize it. I know that it's within their culture to do so, but I do certainly understand that in some cases, certain subjects may be required by law in that state or by a law governing that type of business. For instance, when I worked in healthcare, we always had to do mandatory training, as we called it, and it was 8 or 9 subjects on specific things that Joint Commission required of healthcare institutions. It was a requirement. We had no way around it. Now, we went out of our way to try and make it more interesting and more fun as far as it being an online component, but it was still a little bit dry and something that we just had to do. I've seen good from all of these mentalities, by the way. I think the bottom line is, how does the company present it, and how does the company make it something people want to do? How do you decide what your company culture or mentality is pertaining to learning and development? Do you know what it is today? Are you able to actually sit back and say, I absolutely know what our culture is? The thing that you need to decide is whether or not you are a learning organization. Remember that, learning organization. This phrase has been used so often it's almost a cliche, yet it is truly the key issue at hand. I love this quick anecdote that I read. A 7-year-old family member once told an elderly aunt that he wanted to quit school. He was stopped cold by her response. She said, "So you want to be only as smart as a 7-year-old for the rest of your life?" It's the same principle at work. If you're going to be a learning organization, then training isn't a function. It's not an event. It doesn't take you away from work. It's a part of everyday work life. It is your work. If people aren't willing to learn as part of their job, then you're going to end up with a bunch of 7-year-olds working for you. This means that training is part of the job. Learning and development is part of the job description. It's a key element in appraisals, leadership coaches to assigned learning content. Courses get more advanced over time as overall competence standards are continually raised. It's a learn or lose environment for workers where failure to improve means falling behind. This is a big deal to team members. They do not want to fail. They do not want to fall behind. Well, that's all well and good. But those who lead the learning and development, even for those who are the hiring authority for someone like me and my company at Tech People Resources, they have to do their part as well. Program quality has to improve. It's time to move beyond traditional training formats. Sitting and watching hundreds of PowerPoint slides being presented will not cut it. I mean that from someone who hates sitting through PowerPoint slides. I'm the type of learner who needs someone to actually be conducting a class or a conference or a meeting with something visual, whether it be a handbook or PowerPoint. I'm not the biggest fan of both, but I work within what the needs are of the actual organization. And it's important that we don't bore these people to tears. The click and read on a monitor is terrible. Screen flipping is not any better. E-learning in some cases, especially if you're in the tech industry or if you're in an industry where you're in front of a computer all day, you don't want to stare at the computer anymore. These days, everyone is a true professional TV watcher, and they're used to seeing and hearing quality content. Programs have to be concise, they have to be interesting, and they have to hold content that your teams want to hear or learn about. I had conducted a podcast recently called The TPR Process, and that podcast hit on all the A to Z of how we get from working with a client to finishing the learning and development program with a client. But one of the biggest things that we really push is doing some discovery and learning what the teams want to learn about. What do they want to hear about? So if the subject's on recruiting or sourcing and recruiting, and it's leadership and teams who actually are conducting the training, but we are the sourcing and recruiting, we have to make sure that they're receiving what they need and not just what the organization thinks they need. Absolutely, we can marry those two together. We can do that. That's easy to do. But we want, through the discovery process, to learn so much more about what they need from learning and development so that they walk away saying, this was absolutely worth our learning time. Again, programs have to be concise. We want them to hear and to learn about something that they want. In general, it's not about whether or not training or learning and development should be mandatory. In a learning organization, completing learning and development is simply expected. It's like being on time, a condition of employment. But to make that work, the learning and development programs have to provide compelling content that helps learners excel. And that content has to be engaging. That's the way to eliminate the entire question. Then training isn't mandatory, it just is. Sure, I could go on and on about why learning and development is important and why you should hire my company right now, pick up the phone, hop to it, but that is not the point of my podcast. The point is to bring up numerous topics that help you learn and grow. But if you want to pick up that phone and call me at 303-503-1738, I'm certainly not going to stop you. Okay, off my soapbox. As we close, I want to remind you that you can always contact us at Tech People Resources for learning and development opportunities on any HR-related subject, or you can always reach out to me at Houchin Consulting for HR assistance of any kind. We are here to help. Tune in next time to HR Chalk Talk as I speak about leadership burnout. It is a real thing. Don't miss this insightful podcast and learn more on this subject. And remember, it's about respect. Your employees will thank you. Respect is an absolute must when leading others. Thank you for joining me today, and have a great week.